to support.
Right.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Rocio Jacobi. I am very excited to be here. Thank you, Bertha, for inviting me to join this. And I am already been certified, National Board Certified teacher since 2018. I already went through my renewal as well, my MOC, Maintenance Certification. So I'm so excited to hear that there is more resources out there since we started for world language teachers. So I'm happy to support you on your journey.
Thank you, Rocio. And everybody, I'm Berta Delgadillo, and I started my certification. I took the 2-year route because I knew my brain was not going to allow me to do it in 1 year. I know some people do, and kudos to them. I look up to them. They're amazing, but not me. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to break it down into doable chunks. And so I started in 2018, 2019. The year I certified was the year of the pandemic. That's December of 2020. That's when I got my certificate. And I remember during the pandemic, we had the option of like postponing because of everything that was going on. But thankfully, I had done all of my work in the classroom before COVID closed the schools. So all I had to do was writing at home, and that was hard enough actually. So that was hard enough to do the writing, because the writing for national board is so challenging. So we are here today, and as you know, this is not a generic how to get national board, because everyone in this space, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me, uh, everyone in this space has started national board certification, and it's at some point of the process, whether you're just getting started, or actually if you are on the process, you're going to be turning in some stuff soon, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because the deadline is like April something. I know sometime in April, because I checked it. I just don't recall the exact date. And yeah, and for us as language teachers, there are some things that are different than for other certifications within national boards. So for example, as we know, if you're doing component 1 and you have to take the language proficiency test, or just other things that we have to prepare for when we are, especially when it comes to component 1, right? And the language that we work with. So yeah, so this is not going to be an overview of national board or anything like that, but it's more to support people where they're at on their journey. And we have, and I'm going to go ahead and share with you this link, and feel free, because this is not, you may have some amazing source that is helping you, or that has helped you tackle something within a component. Because I know we have people here who are maybe on their second year and maybe on their first year. So if you have a source that you have found useful to tackle a component, please use this space, this Padlet that I just shared, to add it. And all you have to do is you just go to the little plus sign right here, and you can type the link on the subject, and it will just, do its thing. So what I have put in here already, and what I was talking to Rocio about, and maybe some of you are already familiar with this, but I'm going to kind of share about some of the resources that are here, and these are the things that help me. So Rocio, if I would say that for me, there was nobody in my state who was a world language national board certified teacher. Well, there was, but they were not in my zone. I live in South Georgia. Most of the movement that happens in my state is in the Atlanta metro area, and that's 4 hours away from me. And so yeah, so there was nobody I knew I could reach out to who knew about, how to do this for national board certification. In fact, when I told my administration I was doing this process, he, of course, he tried to help me. He connected me with someone in my district, but they had certified like over 10 years ago. And
And it's so different. It has
exactly.
changed tremendously. The process is it's like just now. I certified in 2018, and when I talk with you, it's already different.
Yeah,
So,
same here. There are things that have changed, right? Yeah.
but there's still like, I feel like there's still same ideas, or the components themselves have the same questions, I think, like, so we can, the ones who went through this process and already achieved the certification definitely have a good knowledge to help you and support you with some ideas or some answer your questions, of course. And I feel like give you tips on the process if you are thinking about your writing, your videos, I don't know, like upload your stuff on the platform, because that's scary. That part, I remember being so scary for me. Like, I want to make sure I double check before I hit the submit button. I wanted to double check that everything download properly, because I have one of my colleagues who one of her document didn't download, and I was like, ah.
Oh my God, yes.
I
I'm
know.
one of those last minute people that will submit everything like 5 minutes before. But for national board, you don't want to do that because so many people are actually last minute people, and sometimes that it may not work, and then you'll be past due. So yeah, don't do that. I'm telling you, it's silly, but it's a very, very real thing. So some of the things that I was telling Chio earlier is that I saw this video by Senor Mississippi, who has on YouTube. Has anybody gone to see it already? This said it was 3 years ago. This is the first time I saw it, but yeah, that wasn't there when I was trying to certify, and it was very helpful. But it was like an overview. The other videos that I saw that may be helpful to you all, if you haven't seen it, are these videos by Erin Austin from Colorado. She's a French language teacher in Colorado, and she breaks down the components as well for language teachers. So we have here these resources if you need help understanding, because it's a lot. It's a lot you have to read through, and you do have to read through. We cannot not read it. You have to read it, and you have to highlight, and you have to find a strategy that works for you for each one of these components. So with that being said, for component one, so I have put all of these videos in here. This is another video. This is not necessary language teaching, but it does break down very well. This is a master coach of National Board. She has a really nice visual of how to get a good grasp of component 4. Anybody in here doing component 4, you can raise your hand or virtually or through the camera. Yes, I mean, component 4 is not called the monster for no reason, right? So it's not called the beast for no reason, because it is. It should really be another component. But yes, so it will help you if you're working through that, or you're like still can't get my head around it, because I know it took me time to get my head around component number 4. There's a video for that you can watch. Now, I will say that for me, the biggest thing that helped me achieve national board certification was getting a good hang of what writing I needed to do. I think that's very important. There are a lot of teachers who are incredibly talented teachers, but if you cannot explain it in writing the way they want you to, we're not gonna be, doing the 3 C's, right? So it is very important. So I would say the video, and it's not even a long video. I think it's about 13 minutes, 20 minutes. This one right here is done by Jenny Santilli. She's actually a Spanish teacher, and she is on Twitter. And she has co-written a book about national board certification too. But in this video, has anybody seen this video by Jenny? No? Okay, so if you're struggling, because there were some things about general advice on video commentary. There was a question in here that said, so if you're one of those people who said, I need general advice on video commentary, what I will say to that, this video right here by Jenny Santilli really breaks down how to approach the writing. Because as you know, you will never write for anything else the way you write for national board. And you have to be able to identify the types of writing. So Chio, do you want to kind of help us remember what those 3 types of writing are that we have to do in national board?
All right, I was the descriptive, analytical, and reflective writing.
So yeah,
I'm sorry, let me see. Is that the ones we're talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about.
So I'm going back to the writing. I feel like it's very important for you to have a strategy of touch every single question that they have, because for the writing commentary, you have all these questions and they're all put together in a way that like you feel overwhelmed. So my strategy for that was, in a document, you open a Google Doc or any document that you have, and then just put all those questions, but you separate them. And then you're answering them. Every single one. Make sure you touch. And even use the same language from the question. Also, use the same language from our standards. So if you can even like highlight, I know there's also the space challenge because you have a certain amount of space, like pages that you need to have. So just make sure that you highlight those keywords on the questions and you need to touch them on your answer. After you finish and you went through all of that, your final product, then you just take the questions out. So that was my strategy, and make sure that you're touching all of that, and then include the words from our standards as well. And I think there was a question on.
Okay, yes, Cecilia, we see your question, but just give me a moment and I'll get to you in just a second, okay? One thing that I will say, because there were several questions, it was not just one question about writing. So as Chio said, does everyone in here feel comfortable? And you don't have to, tell me yes or no unless you want to, because, this is like a very personal question on our process, right? Does everybody feel comfortable distinguishing the 3 types of writing on the questions that are being asked of you? Okay, so it is important for you to determine, are they asking me to be descriptive? Are they asking me to be analytical? Or are they asking me to provide a synthesis of my thinking, right? So how you are going to answer that is based on reading that question. And then the other thing that I would say, that I always said, and this is something that I share at our full presentation, has everyone in here read the National Board publication on what teachers must know and be able to do? Because that is something else that was, to me, if you're asking me, again, maybe it's not necessary, but to me, that made a world of a difference. And it is this publication right here that is a National Board. If you type on Google what teachers should know and be able to do. So does this seem familiar to some people? Yeah. Okay. So what I always say is go through it. And I like to do color highlighting. So as I'm going through it, everything that I already do in my classroom or what they're talking about, I may highlight it in green. And everything that know that I need to get better at, that it's already on my awareness, I may highlight it like in yellow. And whatever I'm not doing yet that I was like, oh, you know what, I hadn't even thought about that, I will highlight it in pink or orange, right? And then what I saw when I finished reading and highlighting this is that I already do a lot of things. So remember how we have to be consistent, right? What are the 3 C's, right? So we have to prove all of that. So with that being said, this text alone provides you different examples of how you show that in your writing through each component. So I think a lot of people sometimes may not pay as much attention to this text, but to me, this text makes a world of a difference. So I really advise that you do this highlighting exercise here, because from here, you'll be able to transfer that to what you do in the language classroom, and you'll come up with examples. The other thing that I would say about in the writing, when you are crafting your response, so we have, like I said, we have this video that you really will have to watch, because it will tell you how to determine, Fatima, it will tell you how to determine what type of writing you need to do and how to approach it in this video right here. So please, 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 anybody that is like, oh my God, writing is not my strength, definitely go watch this. And even if you feel writing is your strength, this is a very different type of writing. So please go see it. Even if you feel that like, oh, I'm already good at writing, this is a very different type of writing, and it will have really good insights. That video has really, really good insights. The other thing that I will say that helped me with writing were these 2 books. I know, like we don't want to spend more money, because if you're paying for this, like I paid for mine, I did not get any scholarships or anything. I got a scholarship from my husband, and that's about it. But other than that, it came out of my pocket, right? And then I also bought the books, these 2 books by this lady, Bobby Faulkner, who is an expert in National Board, are incredible. And I know it's more reading, right? Because when it comes down to it, and you print the general standards, the national standards, and everything else, it's like this thick, right? Well, and then we're gonna read some more because we put ourselves through this. So what I want to show you here, this is the actual book because I bought it on Kindle. And let me see if I can find it. Chapter 2. Okay, so not that one. But oh, here we go. My people who are talking about how to do a descriptive passage. Here, see, you see how I highlighted that right there? Yeah, this is like years ago when I did my process. So I was reading this and this, that, and the other. And then she gives you, you know how our students, when we're elevating our students to another level of proficiency, we give them sentence frames, sentence stems. Well, same. She gives you a lot of sentence stems in here, and she gives you a lot of things like that, and a lot of food for thought on how you can expand on your writing, because sometimes it is normal. It is absolutely normal to be like, this question, do I really do that? And then you start second guessing yourself. And then you're like, should I really be doing this? Oh my God, maybe I'm not, So no. It's about how you defend it. So, and then she gives you examples, like examples of with evidence, lack of evidence. Here's an example. Another one with evidence, lack of evidence. So you can see, because this is called a model text. This is what we use in our language classroom, and it's a model text, right? When we want to help our learners be better writers. So you will see on this book, it has so much support. And let me see. Oh my God, this is my favorite part. Look at this, y'all. Using strong verbs, strong phrases, and Bloom's taxonomy. So she has already done the work for us. Strong verbs, yes. Strong phrases, and more strong phrases. So here's a lot of things that you can incorporate in your writing, and it's going to support you, and it's going to elevate your writing. So if you are struggling with the writing, those are some supports that already exist that I highly recommend. So please, definitely, if you're working on component 1 and 2, or component 4, this should be 3 and 4, then definitely order these books, because they're going to give you pointers on how to do this right. I credit a lot of my success with National Board, and when I certified the first time, like I said, I do it in 2 years, but I certified the first time. Like I didn't have to do any components more than once or anything like that. And but yeah, what helped me was this video to understand how to write, and then her scaffolding, because she really provides scaffolding. The scaffolding to write is what helped me be successful. Rocio, do you want to add anything else to writing before we take Cecilia's question? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was looking at the taxonomy because I have a chart with colorful, and I'm going to add it in the Padlet, and then I couldn't find the Zoom. Yes, I mean, I totally agree with you. I do have something to say though. When we write for National Board, it's not the same way when you write, like say for an essay, for a high school essay. It's not the same as like you want to look at pretty and with too much wordings. It's more like about the content of your sentences. You need to be convincing. You need to show the evidence. You need to analyze it. You need to reflect on everything you are doing. So even if it doesn't sound like pretty on your sentences, but as long as you have the answer or what they want, and you're targeting that, and you have your evidence, you're analyzing it, then you are fine. And that's what I did. Just want to make sure you are not stressed out, like it has to sound pretty, it has to look, because at the end, if you are exceeding of your over pages, like say there's only 4 pages or 3 pages, you're more than that, you're going to have to cut this down. You're going to have to narrow things down, and your words are going to be smaller, but as long as you keep your main point. So I'm going to add this taxonomy words chart on the Padlet for you. I think I should put it on the other resources. Is that okay? Or should I put it on more resources? I'm going to put it in there.
Yeah, you can put it on more resources. So we'll pause for the writing. Are there any specific questions with regards to the writing? And I don't know, there was someone in the actual survey who said that they wanted, one of the supports they needed is they wanted an explanation of the national board in Spanish. And I failed to ask people in the survey if we had people who were Spanish and French teachers. So for that reason, we're doing this in English right now. And then because we want to share this a video as well, because it will support other people who can't be here. And I don't know if they're all Spanish teachers. But my person, if you are here who wanted the explanation in Spanish, if you want to stay a little bit afterwards, I'll be happy to support you for a little bit with that. So, and do we have any questions or comments about the writing or challenges? I mean, this is definitely, just know that this is recorded and it's not going to be shared with the world, but maybe other teachers pursuing national board certification will, will be watching it later on for a language. But are there any specific questions we didn't cover as far as like, or does anybody feel like, oh, I have something else to do, not to do. I have something else on my plan to do my best on this component. Yes, no? Is this helping? Okay, all right. So we have several comments in the chat. Thank you so much. Uh-huh. Okay, so I'm going to go back to one of the comments that was here. Cecilia, you said you did the highlighting thing with the standards. However, many of the things are not specific to the feature unit. That's okay. That's okay because, are you on year 2 or year 1? Year 1?
Year 1.
So
Yes.
there'll be things maybe that were not featured in this unit, but maybe they'll be present and later on for your year.
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm like, remember, it's doesn't have to be all covered only in one of the components. That's why there are 4 components. So they're looking at you as a whole. Does that make sense? Because every component is addressing specific skills, strategies that you are gonna show and prove that you are doing in your classes to, to show that you are an accomplished teacher. So that's okay if that you don't see that on one of the components. Make sense?
Well,
sorry.
Yeah, one of the questions is like, for example, if I'm doing calendar talk and personal interviews, that kind of gives me like the knowledge of students, but how do I fit in my component too? Because it's not part of the feature unit, you know what I mean? But it's part of our class routine. Does that make sense? Just to hit that knowledge of students, or is that not the proper area to show the knowledge of students? I don't know if my question makes sense.
There is one of the forms that you need to fill out.
I think the first one.
In the first one, where you have to, just say, what have you done to get to know your students? And like, for example, in my case, I do give students a survey where they tell me about them, their likes, their preferences, likes and dislikes, how they learn, what do they like better. And that's how I know who are my kinesthetic students, who are my word students, etc. But I also, there is also another way in there where you can find like the percentage of the population of your students. And I think like, how do you get to know them through families if you send a survey to families as well? So that's a separate document that you need to fill out besides your writing commentary. And if I'm missing something, Bertha?
No, I would agree. I would put it on that very first page, that they ask you to know like what you know about your students, and when you
and then you refer back to it when
right,
you're writing.
yes. And then the other thing too is when they are asking you, and I don't recall, I think component 2 is assessment, isn't it? Component 2? Yes.
It's differentiation.
The component to it, the differentiation.
Differentiation, but you had to. That's where,
students.
but you had to submit assessments to show how you differentiate.
Yes.
That's why I'm thinking
That's
assessments. Yes. So yeah, I totally agree with
I have to say too, like in the component too, like for example, like to show how you get to know your students is like exactly what Berta says. What did you do in your assessment to make to show differentiation? like maybe the collaboration that you have with other teachers in your building, like why are you meeting with this teacher? Because this student needs, you know, the extra support. So that's already showing that how you know your students, you know, student knowledge. Does that make sense? And also anything that you're referring to, I'm doing this because of this, like in your writing, how do I do this? Why do I do this? You know, you always say the what, the why, and the how, to share with your assessor that you are thinking of all these specific things that they're asking. And that's a way to show knowledge of students.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Hola, Fatima.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I have a question about specific component two. Knowing the students, is that requiring me to differentiate in assessment 1, 2, or just like collect the data and plan and drive my instruction? Then assessment 2, it's where I have to show also my differentiation. Do you want me to rephrase it again?
Yeah, please.
Yes, please.
Sure.
Wait,
Sorry,
is this
can you
for
hear me now?
component 2?
All right. My question is this.
Yeah, I think she's
I
talking.
already wrote about my students. I know them. I collect information, parent survey, contact the teachers, collect information from everywhere and using the survey. Now, knowing this information, is that require me when I start writing about the goals for assessment 1, for example, the first assessment, should I start the differentiation from there or just give one assessment to see their ability, to collect the data? So where I can go ahead and plan instruction for the next unit, and I can differentiate in process, I can differentiate in product, and whatever it's gonna be related to my students' needs.
Yeah, it sounds like you are on the right track approaching it that way, because that's kind of how I did it. And something that we want to remember, this is for everyone and every component, not just component 2. And I'm pretty sure you already know this, but sometimes we need to be told again, this is not about how perfect our teaching is. This is about how we're going to become better reflective practitioners of our work. And this is how we're going to learn how to advocate for our programs more and how to support our students more. And part of this process is going to help us become better. It's not about showing perfection, but we do want to obviously meet the standards. So what you're saying, yeah, in the beginning you will, and again, that's something that Bobby addresses on her books as well. If the beginning you will say, okay, you know, I noticed based on this assessment, this was noticed from S1, and because of this, I proceeded to make a note of how I'm going to support them throughout the unit, so that, you know, and then later when you do the other assessment and you differentiate it, then you can talk about looking back into what I observed initially on this assessment. These are the things I put in place, and, you know, this student XYZ, and yeah, so connected like that.
Yeah. So
Thank you so
Fatima,
much. Yes.
I agree with Berta. I think you are in the right track. That's what the written commentary and you hitting all those questions is really strong. Is your strong evidence of your what you did, why you did it, and then your reflection as a teacher, as a educator. And so in my when I did this and I was doing my assessment, it's more like this is the assessment that I have for my class, but how did I modify this assessment to help these other students, you know? What changes did I make and why did I make them? And did they work? Or did I need something else? That would be your reflection. So that's what you're looking at your assessments. And who did I collaborate with?
There is a question sent directly, so you won't see it in the chat, and it was, do the assessments need to be different, or could they be open-ended so they can show what they're able to do? Personally, I mean, personally, I did mine different because it was the same unit, and I'm not saying that this is the right answer, but the reason I decided to do mine differently is because it would showcase different styles of assessments, which this section is about differentiation, right? So it made sense in my head to approach it with different assessments. And also, I'm not telling you to do this, but I think this is the component where I got the only component where I got a perfect score. But it's been years, so I'm not talking here as an oh my god so experienced. No, because it's been years, and I remember exactly what I did and why, but it's been years, so it's not fresh in my head. But I said I made a different assessment because this is a chance to show that you differentiate assessment, not just instructions, but assessments as well. And another way to differentiate assessments, let's say that your assessment A is similar to your assessment B, okay, but it's different. So it's similar, but it's different, right? So maybe your assessment A was a free write about whatever the topic was, right? And maybe your assessment B is actually a more precise question. They're still doing written output. Well, assessment B, maybe I want to even give more chance for student choice because I want to show that I am differentiating. Maybe I want to give different options for output because I want to show that I can differentiate. So those are the things that are some food for thought for those of you working through component number 2. I hope that was helpful and that I answered that question. Again, you all do whatever it is you want, but this is what worked for me. And that kind of answers a little bit of Maria's question, but Maria, we will go, Maria did not ask that question, it was someone else, but Maria asked a question about our processes, but we still got to tackle component 4, so we'll be back with you, Maria, and elaborate a little bit more on that, okay? So let's go over here through this. Chio, you want to tackle Paulina's question for now while I'm trying to look for a document that is not my document, but it was shared, and I do want to share it with people. So can you tackle the question from Paulina while I try to find this document?
Sure. Let me read this. If you want to be convincing with various evidence, can you shrink the pictures as long as it's okay to see? I see already, Andrea. But sorry, so serious to see the picture as long as it's okay to see on the screen. And is this for the evidence for what's assessment and evidence? I hope I'm understanding your question correct, but you have to have the right size of the picture and the evidence document. And you cannot cut it. You cannot shrink it. Because they need to see everything on that. So that's very challenging because they also give you like one page that you can use for evidence, and you have so many evidence that you want to share. You just have to pick the one that you feel it's the strongest one that will back up your writing. So my answer for this, can you shrink? I'll probably say no. Andrea, I saw you shaking and doing, so since you are recently working on this, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I was typing, but I'll go ahead and say it. I would recommend rereading your instructions. Again, I did components 2 and 4 last year, and they were pretty clear on like, you can only have so many pictures on a page, and it does have to be legible. So there can be some shrinking like done, but I would be very, very like weary to like shove them all on one page, because it does say like you can only have so many pictures on a page, and it has to be within the margins. And yeah.
Yeah, I had the feeling I read them, then I moved to something else and I forget, and I had to back and read them again. And I have so many things going on. And for example, some of my evidence is a video that my students did in Book Creator, and then I'm recording that or taking the picture and I put the translation of what they said. But because it's a print screen of the screen, I can shrink it, I am always worried about if it's not gonna be scored because I shrink it too much, or because with a paper, it's easy to just scan the quiz and then you put the quiz in there. But when you had to manipulate things from the screen, that you print the screen and then type, and like in my case, I typed the conversations that my students had to show. That's what I wanted to show. I don't know, but yeah, I had to go back and read it again. Thank you.
Yeah. So Pauline, are you like taking a screenshot from the video? Is that what you're saying? That will be your evidence?
Yes.
I mean, you could. I will say go back and read that again, but I will probably say like if you do a screenshot, you cannot cut it. You know, it has to be the whole picture, and then it has to be like Andrea said, visible for the evaluator to see, to be able to see and read if there is any words in there. Because if it's blurry, they're not gonna count that.
Yeah, I type what my students are saying, and you can see it. I'm trying to put Arial 11 in everything, but I was wondering, I did cut like the frame of the print screen. So should I show that it has the date and the time when you capture a screenshot? Or can I trim it around?
I don't want to answer something that I am not 100% because I'm afraid of saying something that might hurt you. So I will have to go back to read that piece of requirement. I don't know.
I was just gonna add, I feel like questions like these are ones where I've gotten a lot from other people. This is where you like call the 1-800-TEACH number and ask them. I called them a lot last year to make sure for document stuff.
I agree with Andrea, and I told I remember that I did put a lot on my component. I don't remember which component it was. I think it was component 4, because component 4, they ask you for so much and you have such little space to show everything. So, but I remember that I did use the snipping tool, because I did not have a Mac back then. So I used the snipping tool to screenshot, well, not screenshot, cut little parts of emails, cut little parts of that were evidence for different things that I was trying to show, and also little parts of data and little parts of things that I was reading, like I said, data and things like that, or pie charts or whatever. Like I would literally use a snipping tool and I put it all in one page. So for me, that worked. But if you want full clarity, I wholeheartedly agree with Andrea. Just call the hotline and double check with them on that end. Okay, so let's see. We have.
And my experience would be when you reach to them, they are reasonably fast, so they answer you right away.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay. So I have. It says. That was a question for Maria, someone who's already halfway through the process of collecting and gathering information for component 2 and 4. I'm eager to hear about your experiences. Can you share your journey selecting assessments and units for differentiation in component 2? Okay, so we already kind of addressed component 2, and I addressed a little bit of how I selected and what I decided to do as far as assessments. Gathering evidence for component 4, my God, I almost cried. And that was the point where I told my husband, I'm about to quit. And he said, no, you're not, because I already gave you a $1,000 scholarship and you need to pull through and you got to make it happen. So, yeah, I had all that pressure, y'all. And, but yes, I was crying. I literally cried. Okay. I cried and I think I lost a lot of hair, and I'm not lying. And it's not, I get alopecia when I'm stressed. So, I mean, it's funny, and don't worry, like you could totally laugh, because I mean, it is funny that I'm losing hair over like stress levels. But for component 4, you have the student need, right? And then you have your professional need that you are trying to show. And I know one thing, I think it's the beautiful thing about component 4 is that you have time to decide and what your own need is going to be as well. Just looking at the standards, it's always important. You know how at the beginning of each component, it tells you the standards, right? Knowledge. So for component 4, we have knowledge of students, fair and equitable learning environment, designing curriculum and planning instruction, assessment, reflection, and professionalism. So always, not just component 4, but always look at the standards. And that's how I make the decisions. Make the decisions based on the standards, on your strengths and on the standards, and the journey you have done to get there. I will share a visual in just a moment, but Chio, do you have anything to add about your experience on component 4? Because for me, that was the last component I did. I actually did C2 and C3 the first year, and I did C1 and C4 the second year. And to me, that was the perfect balance. I didn't know what the heck I was doing because I did not read about what each component was until after I paid for the freaking thing. So it's like, surprise, surprise. And yeah, but you know what? That was, for me, that was God getting my back. Because to me, that was a perfect balance. C4 was a lot, and C1 for me was fair. For me, it was fairly simple. Chia, do you have anything to add for component 4?
Yeah, I was actually going back to my component 4. It's been a long time, but I did component 2 and component 4 on the same year. So that was crazy because there was a lot of writing. And if I would choose, I would probably not do those 2 together. But I couldn't. It was a cohort that my district host. For my component 4, I let's see, I did for formative, and I did a lot of like self-assessment with my students. So that was my formative. And then my big assessment was kind of like a integrate performance assessment, where I included all of, interpretive, interpersonal and presentational. I tried that. And I think that was very helpful to have it as my summative assessment and show my students growth. And for my professional, everything that you're doing right now, if you're attending conferences, or if you are part of a leadership team in your district, in your school, that's a good evidence. You just keep that in your bank, in your storage. And so then you talked about that too, and then how you so how are you bringing this to your classes as well? How everything that you're doing, you're already learning yourself. How are you bringing that into your lessons? So tie that up of what you're doing. And now, because I went through the maintenance process as well, that is very similar that you need to do. So don't forget to keep growing as a professional as well and keep track of that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chio. Well, this is just visual I was talking about. I had the visual because I actually used this when this really supported me. Of course, she is ACPO Teacher of the Year from 2019. So no surprises here. But if you, everybody here for the most part, I'm assuming you either followed me on Instagram or Facebook, or you were part of the National Board for Certification for World Language Teachers. That's how you found out about this event. So if you notice, and I need to email her because she had some blog posts, but now you can't go to the blog posts. I don't know if she changed her website or what was going on. So that's why I did not add her links. But anytime you have a question, and this is something that happened to me, anytime I have a question, before I ask somebody else, I do my most absolute research. Like extensive research because sure, it's wonderful to have a shortcut. It's wonderful to have this support. But the more prepared you are when you go to get the support, the better off you're going to be. And the better you're going to be able to phrase that question. So the reason I say this is because this is inside the National Board Certification. Save her name and search her name on this group. So search her name on the group and you'll see all her posts within the group. Some stuff is going to be useful to you. To me, something that was super useful was this. She said she was certified in 2016, but this is still helpful today. And again, I had saved this. I had it on my drive, but I did not want to share it because I remember she shared it there, but because it's public, I can share it. And so here we go. You see how she structured her C4? This is what I use for mine too. She structured her, it's just a simple spreadsheet. So this is for my people who are having the question about how do you organize, how do you wrap your head around? Okay, so you want to do your standards for that component and then brainstorm all the things you do, all the things that you do. Of course, you know, being who she is, she took into account any feedback she had received previously from previous components. And, you know, she had a reflection on that. But even if you only do this part right here, does this look like clear, consistent evidence for national board? Like, yes, that's a lot. And that's another thing. We don't, when we are writing, we don't want to just cling to, here's one thing, one way I show this. No, here's 1, 2, and 3 ways I show this. For every question, think of 3 examples. For every standard, think of 3 examples and elaborate on those 3 examples. For me personally, when I was doing my writing, the problem was trimming down my writing. That was a nightmare for me. Because I had a lot of examples of where I could draw from. And not only that, I was the first time, when you first start writing, you do want to keep into account the power verbs. You do want to keep into account the type of writing you're doing, but you first want to flow. You just want to flow, 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 flow. And then, you know, you revise, and then you take away, and then you add, and then you think about more things. So, but I would say, remember how you have to meet every standard. So you put the component, and then you put every part of the standard, right? And then you brainstorm how you meet that under those specific circumstances, under that specific topic, under those specific questions. And this will ensure that you have all the evidence, more than plenty of evidence to say check mark. Okay, now I just have to be descriptive, analytical, or, you know, synthesize. So yes, so if that helps anybody, that's already here. There are many other amazing sources in here. So whenever you have a question, this is difficult, this is challenging, somebody probably already asked the question. So what I like to do is I like to put C4 blah 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 blah, and then find it. So if I just put C4, see, oh, there I am when I was finishing mine, and then I got 9 responses.
I feel like also this is a great way to like emphasize how organization throughout this process is so important. Like if you lay things out like that in that chart or wherever works for you, but having that organization and see, you will be surprised how much of the stuff they're asking you already been doing. But if you have it in an organized way, and like Berta said, you just like check, 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 you know, then you just bring that into your document, into your writing paper. So
see, yeah, absolutely. And you'll see, I asked this after I searched through here to figure out if anybody had, you know, asked the question. So if you type in the component you're working on, read through everything. And I know it's a lot of reading. This is another good one. Oh my God, okay, y'all, this one is another really good one. C4 rubric evidence standard examples outline. I am using this planning tool from who? From this woman who is the author of those books we recommended. This is a planning tool. So this is another way to organize, and that is rubrics, evidence standard examples outline. Here's component 4, clear, consistent, convincing. So when you see the 3 C's, that means just provide 3 strong ones, right? Here's what they're asking us to do, right? And then here are the standards again. So here, this comes from the component evidence. You know, at the beginning, what they tell you, this is what you're supposed to be. So it's broken down. And then you can, if you're like, okay, I don't want to do it this way, I want to do it this way, then you do it this way. And yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just looking at somebody say, would it be possible to put these documents on the Padlet?
Yes.
Or...
Yeah, no, it is absolutely possible, but I really, really want to encourage everybody, like I said, please
utilize that strategy. Yes, definitely.
Well, utilize the strategy and utilize the sources, because most of your questions are already answered in here. We have to dig. So that's it. We have to dig through the information to find it.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with that. And it's like, and I know it's overwhelmed And even right now, you're probably here and you are getting your answers. Hopefully you're getting your answers, your questions answered. And still, I'm still sure there's still so much going on. But I go back to the organization. If you find your way to organize your evidence, your information, your resources, that's going to be helpful so much, because then you just have your to-go. Where is your to-go place where you are going to get all your information to start your writing?
And if you notice, when you see a post, read through the comments, read through what other people said. And you can even comment something and tag whoever collaborated on that or share that, because most people who go through this process, we know how hard it is, and we genuinely want to help other people. I wish I could help everybody one-on-one, but right now, with everything that I have on my back with the doctoral program, it's impossible for me to do that. So yeah, I'm actually putting this tool by Bobby Faulkner for C4 in the Padlet, and so people can see it. And I'll also put the link by Rebecca Bluewolf in there as well, so that you can see it. And now what you should do, my advice would be for you to do, is to make copies and create those same ones for the other components as you tackle the other components as well. So yes, let me check. I see the hands up, and I'm gonna check. You can always, okay, so Maria Sanchez, I hope that the graphic organizers helped to answer that question about how do you organize this. You can always write about it, right? Yes. Okay, so we talked about that. Angel, thank you so much. It says, I choose an assessment which central idea is to point out process instead of only product. So I am paying attention to the process instead of making the product the central aspect of it. I will end up with several things that led to the final product. Do you recommend me to make everything fit as space as evidence, or leave? Do you recommend me to make everything fit in a space as evidence, or leave the process for description and show end product? Chio, did you see that question from Angel? What do you think?
Yeah, I was reading it and I'm also thinking, there is definitely a way, like there is definitely, when you put your evidence in there, if you cannot fit everything, you could utilize your space in your writing to describe something. So it's my suggestion would be like to be careful, because you have certain space only on your writing. So want to make sure that if you are going to leave that for the writing piece, how much of that are you going to use? So kind of like juggling, which is the one that you're going to put on your evidence paper, and what is the one that you're going to write? I hope I'm answering that question. It's more like making your decision on what is the best choice. So in other words, what's your strong evidence? It's better to put it on your evidence sheet, because that's what the evaluators are going to see and they are going to look at, and then you're referring back onto your writing. If you don't have anything to refer to from that sheet, it's going to be a little challenging. Does that make sense?
Okay. Thank you so much, Chio. Also, the tools, organizational tools have been added there. So now you have them. Something else that I did too, when I was tackling my writing, is I color code a lot of things, y'all. And and something that I did is every question I color coded. Like if it was a description, I color coded blue. If it was synthesis, the question, I color coded red. If it was analytical, then I color coded like another color, yellow, so that I would know what was my style of writing at that moment. And I would remind myself, this is how you have to answer that question. And I'm telling you, it's not difficult, but you cannot leave it for the last minute. And I'm a very last minute person. I have ADHD. I was undiagnosed until the summer. And it answers a lot of questions for me. And no, my brain does not work like this. Yes, my brain does not work like this either. But when I have a couple $1,000 on the line, and I have a very short amount of time and a goal that I'm invested in, my brain can shift to working like this, surprisingly. So I was able to use these sources to do it. So the reason I share that with you is because, you know, if you're thinking, oh, that's not me, maybe you too, I'm not saying you have ADHD, but maybe your brain doesn't work by checklist. These tools definitely help, especially when you have money on the line and you are trying to, you know, earn the certification for whatever reason. In my state, I don't get any additional supplement. I wanted to do it because I wanted to, you know, just to upgrade myself, like to reinvent myself in the process, honestly. And it really did that for me. So we have a couple more questions. Let's see, Maria says, looking back on your national board certification, what words of encouragement or advice would you offer to educators who are currently grappling the process? So encouragement, words of encouragement, Chia, what do you have?
I just wanted to say that for you to be here and then going through this process and still wanting to learn more, that already made you an accomplished teacher. So you already are a national board teacher. Is the process that you're going through, it's very, it's a lot. But just think at the end, there is an end. And then in the end, we're all celebrating with you. So I personally feel that I am very lucky to be surrounded with all of you guys, and I am so proud of you, and I am here to support you so you guys can do this. And you're already an amazing teacher. And I want you to know that, because just going through the process might make you feel like, oh, I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing this right. Yes, you are. You are doing it right. And you just need to prove it. So yes, you can do it. Sí se puede.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And, you know, I'll tell you this. This is what they tell me about my doctoral program, but I could so relate it to the national board. If you don't cry, if you don't break down, if you don't second guess yourself, do I really have what it takes to do this? Then are you even doing national board? Then you're not doing it right. Okay. So it absolutely applies. Like this process is going to help you. It's going not help you. I mean, it is going to help you, but it's going to make you doubt yourself. And it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's
yes,
normal.
It's totally normal. And I feel like that we are already doing everything they're asking us to show. But one of my friends described it as kind of like, you know, when somebody asks you what is 2 + 2, and you know it's 4, but they want you to know is like, why is it 4? So how do you get to 4? So it's like a lot of little things, which in the process, it helps you to be a more reflective, or actually find out why are you doing these things to help your students be successful. And so all of this process is going to help you to become a more reflective teacher.
Absolutely.
And asking yourself, why am I doing this? And not just filling in products or like filling in lesson plans for filling it in, but more like having a more meaningful lesson and then getting something out of it for your students. So
and in the process, you are going to grow, and it's totally normal, because some people are like, oh, you know, I don't deserve this because I had to go look up how to show evidence of, you know, this. That's totally normal. If you're like, I don't know how to show evidence of this, how do I show evidence of me doing some metacognition in the class with my students? And you go and go off the Google rabbit hole and find examples of how other teachers have done that. That's another skill you add to your tool belt that you're going to implement for national board, and still show that you were able to apply it with success. So when you don't have the answer, honestly, just when you are, because there will be some parts you probably will know how to tackle and show your examples of what you do in the classroom, but there might be a few things that you're like, I don't know how to show how I do this in the classroom. So that's when you go and look on ideas on Pinterest, I spend much time on Pinterest looking national board evidence, and then find examples of that, because I know how I collect evidence, but maybe that's not clear enough. So I want to find a stronger way to showcase the evidence in my classroom. So that's another thing. Again, like I said earlier, we just have to, the answers are there. We do have to just dig. And then when we don't find the answer, that's when we are like, knock, knock, Chio, knock, knock, Berta, knock, knock, whoever, knock, knock, Facebook group. What do you have? I'm at a loss here. So never stop asking those questions, but definitely exhaust all the resources first. Let's see, let's go over some questions. Fatima, you had your hand up for a while, and I didn't see it. I'm sorry, but you know, we were
It's
trying
all right.
to get through the information here.
Thank you so much for sharing all this, like, tips and tricks. I really appreciate it. I feel like, as I wrote, like I'm doing again the ATPA, but it's on steroids and much depth. That's how I feel. I have a specific question about component 2 that I'm struggling with. Like, I feel like I got it, but you doubt yourself again and again. It's about the goals. So we've attended a professional development like 2 weeks ago, and we talk about it. But my understanding for goals for my students, it's related to the unit, the overarching goals, what I want each student to be able to do or can do, related to the can do statement and the word language standard that it's applicable in my state. But I feel like, should I go ahead and do different, like each student will have different goals based on different proficiency mode? And if I do that, my assessment 2 would have different assessment and on different skills. It could be reading, writing for this student. It could be listening and reading for another student. Am I understanding it correctly? Or if I do assessment 1 writing, should I do assessment 2 also writing? I will give options, of course, in assessment 2, like I have a choice board, but does it like necessary to be from the same skill or the mode of communication? Or should I address all the mode of communication, since we're talking about word language and we have to address all mode of like proficiency in order to help students? Like, that's question 1. And question 2 is that, in my planning instruction, am I talking solely about the 2 students? How about the rest of my class? I have English learners. I'm providing support. Should I mention that, or it's not necessary?
You will have the opportunity to mention that on that very first page that we talked about at the beginning, when you have to describe the group where you pull these 2 students from. So that's where you will mention that. That your class is so diverse as far as needs. And for all of us language teachers, our classes are already super diverse. Even if we don't have English language learners, even if we don't have just all types of need, right? IEPs and students with IEPs, even if you don't have any of that, just the fact that people do not acquire the language at the same rate. I mean, some students in level 2 are going to be novice low. I mean, that's just the nature. Some people are going to come in, novice mid. Some people are going to be novice high, etc. So, yeah, all of that you can address, like you said, Cecilia, yes, in the instructional context. That's where you can mention that.
But I'm not, like, for my plan, because what I'm working right now on my planning, should I mention what I've done to the students too, or just focus only on my student A and student B?
Focus on answering the question.
On
the students. Yeah, because if you focus on everybody else, you're probably going to run out of space very, very quickly. If you were like, okay, I need to, if you think it would apply, or maybe you mentioned this student performs X, Y, and Z in comparison to this group who received this type of instruction, then maybe, that's where you would mention, you can make a mention, but it's aligned and in purpose with the question and the student that you are, student sample that you're describing. I don't know, Chio, do you have something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if this is referring to component 2, your paper is about the differentiation and you're having 2 students. So I agree with Bertha about, like, that's your concentration, that's what you should concentrate on. And in regards of your goals, I think you were talking about your goals. What is your assessment? What are your assessment targeting? What are your goals for the lesson?
Okay.
And then how are you differentiating for these 2 students?
So the
then
goal has to be the same? Or should I, like, is it okay? Because I already, like, give them separate goals.
That's your unit goal.
Okay, so it's a unit goal.
Right? For a component 2, you have a unit goal, and then you are doing your unit in your lessons, and then you have an assessment and how you are assessing those 2 students. But again, I mean, I'm literally thinking right now, like, going back to your questions for your written commentary, going through each of them because that's specific for those 2 students. If somebody else would like to add on this, I mean,
The way I see it, and I'm no expert, the way I see it is like you have your goal for the unit, you do your pre-assessment, you see where your students are, and then based on what you see, you design your instruction. And those 2 students are really I would see that they are the representative of a group of my students. Like if I have a novice low, what would I do for my novice low? But I'm focusing on that specific student, but that specific student is representing a group in my class. And then student B, which might be my novice high, what would I do to take that student to the next level? And even though I'm speaking for that student, this student is a representative of, because I don't have just one novice high, I may have several. That way my classroom is benefiting from that differentiation. That's the way I see it, but I don't know. And how I say that and prove that, I have no clue.
Well, you will figure it out.
yeah, that was very well said, Cecilia. That was very well said, because you are now putting it together in a way that what are you doing for this group or for this level of students by being represented by this particular student? So I hope that answered, Fatima.
Okay, Cecilia, you have a question also?
One of them was one comment when you were talking about Facebook. What I discovered is that you can, when you save for later, you can create categories. So when I've been digging through that, if I see something that would be helpful for component 4 that I'm not even thinking about right now, I just created different categories for the different components that I found would be helpful to me. And I've started creating subcategories in Facebook. Right now I'm just in component 2, but I hope that, when the time comes, because I don't know how to use Padlet yet. So, but my last question was, going to the assessments, can I assess my student if I feel like my student is not quite ready for writing? So my assessments, can they be different on my second assessment? As far as like one student, I present a sample of a writing one and then the other one on a different mode, or do they have to be on the same mode?
Will you remind me what component are we talking about?
Sorry, component 2.
Okay. Okay. I hate to ask you again. Would you rephrase the question? I mean, ask me again or ask us again.
Sure, it's component 2. So I had them write small story, and one of my students, she just blossomed. The other one was just writing half English, half Spanish. So with my second assessment, does it need to be in writing, or can it be on a different mode? Because she just needs more, we know that she needs more input in order to output, right? Or does it have to be still writing, but more scaffolded for her level? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
When I did my component 2, I did a writing, and then I did scaffolding for one of my students, and I did a fill in the blanks with a word bank.
Okay.
And so that will show the differentiation, why did I do that? And so
absolutely. I was going to say
that was kind of what I was thinking. Like, should I just give her like something to fill in the blanks and then the other one more opened? But at the same time, I worry that what if she's grown from the first one to now, where she could actually write the story, and then I'm just limiting her by doing that. You know what I mean?
You can give the 2 options.
Okay.
I mean, I would probably
Make
say
that
give them the
choice.
2 options and let the student choose,
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say the same thing, because this is where it gets tricky when giving advice. You don't like, for us, yes, we want to support, but then we also, so 2 things. It's like your discovery process too, and then also we also don't want to like inhibit you from maybe coming up with like a creative idea. But personally for me, I did the same assessment at the end for both students. However, my assessment at the end had different, it was a presentational writing, and it had different options for presentational writing on the same topic of the unit. So the student could describe how they were going to approach the writing, but also you can provide, as Chio said, if you notice that this student did not perform very well at the beginning, you want to give them options too. Or maybe you could even say, you started the assessment and the student, and you knew the student was having trouble initially, and you happened to walk to check on their work, and you noticed they needed this support, and you had thought about it before, so you were prepared to support that student. And at the end of the day, you want to argue and defend the fact that there was growth on that student nonetheless. Maybe it was not the same growth from this other student, but there was growth in the student. At the end of the day, it's about helping our students grow in the language.
Thank you.
Andrea.
Hello. I feel like I'm like completely gonna like shift gears.
Okay, we've been talking about component tool a lot, which I don't mind.
I will try to be succinct with my question, but I do kind of have a two-part question. I'm doing component 3 this year. Just so everybody knows my situation. I didn't certify last year. I've been through all the components. I'm on a retake year. So I'm doing component 3 again, and I have my first video. My first video is a whole group instruction. Mostly like interactive lecturing, like students interacting with me and a text. And right now I'm trying to decide what video to choose for my second video. And so my first question is, any advice on choosing my second video? Both options are small group instruction, and the students are working in groups, and I'm like rotating around. So I've already been through the document of like how to pick a video, but if you just have any other guidance of like what really led you to pick one video over another, that's my first question. My second question is how to like kind of piece through advice that I get from other people, because I have a mentor, I have a cohort leader, I've been leaning on Chio a lot. So how, like, when there's so much coming at you, like how do you know what to listen to and what not to listen to, and kind of like what to choose? For example, for my video, choosing the second, like between the two videos, I have like one person who's saying, oh, I think it's good to show this, and then another person who's like, oh, I don't think you need to show like this. And then I had one person who was like, you're in the groups too much, can the students do this on their own? So then I re-recorded where I was in the groups less, and then my cohort leader was like, oh, the camera doesn't follow you enough. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't how do I win? Like, so my second question to wrap it up is like, how do you know what advice to take, either from the video or writing process, right? Because I'm going to have different people looking at my writing too. How do I take their feedback or not take it? So sorry for both those long questions.
Okay, no worries. It's a very valid question. I'll jump in, and then Chio, I'll let you elaborate. I know you work with Andrea sometimes, but it will be beneficial for other people. Is anybody else gonna be doing component 3 or tackling it right now or doing it in the future? Just, because that way, yeah, awesome. So that way, it's gonna be helpful for other people as well. So I would say for me, Andrea, it's so real what you just said. Who do you listen to? And it's not just when it comes to national board, it comes to everything. Everything that matters to you as a person, who do you listen to? We have so much noise on social media. We have so much, social media is powerful, but it also can suck your energy. And it also can, sometimes it's not helpful. But, it is where we can get answers to so many things. We have knowledge at our fingertips, right? And at the end of the day, I am this is me, I don't know about you. At the end of the day, that's why I like to do a lot of research. And I know you do too, because you're out there, just consume. But after you have consumed so much and you're like, okay, I've done my part, that's when you listen to your intuition. And I know that may not be the easy answer, but that is the realest thing I can tell you. That's when you listen to your intuition. And now keep in mind, this is the only advice I needed for my videos. And I will tell you this, just like I told you, component 2 was the one where I scored the highest. Component 3 is the one where I scored the lowest. And the reason why, one of the reasons why is because number one, I left it for last minute. And another reason why is because it was COVID. I had to turn it in by COVID had just started. And like I said, I was like writing everything, but it's still not an excuse. I think my writing could have been better, but as far as the video, I was pretty satisfied with the videos that I sent. And the reason why is because number one, some advice that was given to me that I feel was useful, and was that, yes, make sure that you are featured on the video enough. However, that does not mean you have to be the center of attention of the video. Like, you're there either supporting students, or you're there giving them instruction, or you're there doing, maybe you're giving overall class instruction and then you go to like a small group or something. But yes, the video is following you and following the students, right? The other thing that I was told, regardless of your teaching approach, and I'm familiar with yours, so regardless of our teaching approach, you want to make sure that there is the students are using the language for a communicative purpose, and that we are doing a language that is rich in culture as well. So do not, whatever it is you do on your video, you do not want to leave the interculturality opportunity out. Like, it needs to be embedded and centered on that. That's very important. Something else that was advised to me, try to integrate as many communication modes as possible in that video. So whether that is, okay, turn and talk, whether that is whole group something, whether that is maybe they're not going to write a full paragraph, but maybe write 3 sentences on the dry erase boards. Like, different communication modes should be featured on the video. You being throughout the video, that I think whatever your advisor told you about the video, and on that end, they were right about that. And then like I said, never leave the culture out of your lessons. That's just good practice in general, right? Because we should teach the language, and it needs to be done in context and in a rich context, cultural context. So yeah, that's my general advice for like what should be on your video. And if I can be honest with you, I did my video, I think I only did 2 takes, and I was like, this is it. This is how I teach. Don't overthink it. Just make sure you meet that criteria and send it off. Chio?
You said it perfectly. I was going to be like this, because I feel like it gets overwhelmed when you're asking to so many people, and everybody's going to share with you their perspective, of course. But at the end is what your guts. And remember, also, I think I said it to you. It doesn't have to be perfect. The video doesn't have to be the perfect lesson, because that's when you're going to write down about on your written documentary, and that's your reflecting part too. So it has to be a balance, in your video. And I think you have, for the component 3, though, you have like 15 minutes video. So I know when you do the whole lesson, it's like sometimes you feel overwhelmed, like, oh, this beginning is really good, but then there's also like, how can I cut it? Because there's also like is like a protocol. I mean, you cannot cut here and there unless there is like a transition move or something happens. So that's very challenging. Just make sure that there is a balance of how much you are in there and how much you're pushing your students, but also like show off how your students can do on their own. So it's just finding the perfect balance in there. And from what I saw your videos, I think you have a pretty good, you're pretty good product. So just listen to yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now for our last couple of minutes is just kind of go down the questions that I have on the Google form that were shared, and of course many of them have already been addressed. And then if you could tell me in the chat, if you don't, well, actually no, let's make another column here. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm gonna make another column on Padlet. Are you all able to type? I think you're able to type, because there were some people that put something in the Padlet earlier, so you should be able to type. Pending questions. So if there's any other questions that you did not ask, or that maybe we won't be able to expand on, please share on the Padlet, or if later on something comes up definitely share on the Padlet any other questions that there may be. But I will say how to prepare for the cultural response on the test. That was another question that was asked that we did not we didn't invest much time on component 1. And like I said, component 1, for me, what helped me and the questions like pedagogy and language acquisition and whatnot, it was just reading. I read a lot of books from ACTFL, like I always have, like the keys to all the keys, the series for the keys, the Bill Van Patten book, several of his books, and then I also refresh using this book. This book is called Teaching Language in Context, and only chapter 1 and 2. It kind of helped me refresh all of the different theories, and I read it I read it like 1 week before I went to take the test, and it was so helpful. There were questions on there from that textbook that, well, I was able to connect with that textbook. And then Chio, can you tell us a little bit about what's on your links that you share for C1?
Yeah, that's pretty much like a document where I put all the links that were helpful to me to prepare for component 1. There is a lot of, like resources in there and some information. I could tell it, like for ACTFL. So I went through all of them to study for it. And then also like the sample test on the national board. If you go through that, the questions on that test are also very, definitely they're very helpful to prepare for that component 1 test because they're similar. So kind of like the idea of what kind of questions they're going to ask you, just look at those sample questions.
Yeah.
For the cultural part, for the writing, I remember be prepared in a way like I am very knowledgeable of Peru culture because I'm from Peru originally. So I felt like that was my strong. So I'm like still thinking about like who will be the famous person that I like to talk to, or what will be the landscape that I'm going to talk to. So those are kind of strategies that that were suggested to me. So I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I'm strong in Peru history. And so I'm just looking at those because they don't specifically ask you for a specific person, but they are just, the question in general. So that document in there, you go through all those links. So there are like resources that you can look.
Absolutely. I would say too, as Chio said, make sure that you are prepared to talk about either just, it could be a person in history, a literary piece, maybe a monument of an ancient civilization, because you don't know what they're going to ask you, but make sure you're like pretty well. I mean, you don't have to be an expert. You don't even have to be an expert. You just have to be able to write about it for however many words they ask you to write, which honestly at this point I forgot. I remember that I wrote about actually I wrote about Sor Juana Inés and her poetry as well, and the impact it had in Mexico, because I love Sor Juana, and I admire her for so many different reasons back in her time, right? So that was easy for me to elaborate. So just make sure you are preparing your head with key points to elaborate and expand upon when I'm writing that cultural part of it. And when it comes to the writing on about the student samples, because they're going to give you student samples, and you have to be able to say how you will help that student get to the next level. And for me, this is why it was so important and easier for me to do component 1 and 4, because component 4 during the school year helped me understand data and what moves I was going to do to help the students achieve more. And same for component 2. So by the time I did component 1 at the end, like I already knew how to explain my case. I already know how to explain, the different performance descriptors and all of that. I think this student falls under this performance descriptor, and this is what I would do to support him or her or them to move to the next level and whatnot. So make sure you kind of review. You don't have to memorize performance descriptors, but you have a general understanding of like at least, like novice and what distinguishes novice, intermediate, and advanced, and what strategies do you have in place to move the students to the next level. So that's important for component 1 and 2. I also review some of the flashcards. Chio, you have several Quizlet flashcards in here. I did
Yes.
review them. I did not memorize them by heart. I just kind of reviewed and loosely made sure I understood what was going on. And I did well on component 1 as well.
Yeah, and another suggestion for component 1 too is like if you practice your writing and time yourself.
Yes, yes.
Because that also helps you to, when you are there, because everything is time. So if you have time to like just practice and then time it yourself and then keep doing that, that kind of like helps you when you are in there.
And there are people, you can make your own little Zoom group with people. You don't have to have an expert. You just to have that confidence of like, I can write within this time. Like, who else is doing component 1? Okay, let's get together on Saturday for however minutes we have to write, and pull a prompt and time each other, keep each other accountable, exchange papers, and give each other feedback. And yes, again, as long as you're knowledgeable about some different, like I say, a person, a literary work, a monument, ancient civilization, and there might be other things I'm missing out, but as long as you're knowledgeable and you're able to expand on that, you'll be fine on that specific part as well. Okay, so we had writing styles, evidence. Okay, we already addressed all of that. Let's see. There was a question, Chio. Maybe you can help me more on that because you just recently did your mock, and that this is more fresh in your head. How do I show the architecture of accomplished teaching in my writing? So I know it's a spiral, and it's present throughout, and I know the elements. But what do we have to say about that?
In the wait, I
Just in
always go
general.
back to like in general. Okay.
Yeah, in general.
Again, I feel like as long as you are in your writing, as long as you are referring back to those by using those keywords in your writing, then you are referring back to like knowledge, like the knowledge of students, then how you're differentiating. So go back to like every time you write, I feel like when I was writing, I had my my architecture of teaching right on my side. So I was just looking at what am I doing and how is this tied up to which part of this, and then just using those keywords on your writing. Does that make sense? So you are already doing it, but make sure that it's on in your writing, those keywords, because I was told that the evaluators, when they're looking at your paper, they are sometimes not necessarily reading at every single word that you have in there written down, but they are looking at those keywords. So if you're referring back to them, then you're talking, because you're doing it.
Absolutely. And some of those writing style questions, those answers are going to be in this book. Like they're going to be in the book from Bobby Faulkner, about what works components for each one of the components. You'll see that there.
Like you start with that as a reflective teacher, I do this. As an analytical teacher, I do this, I do that, and you just put it in there.
Absolutely. Okay, so we hope this has been helpful today to everyone. This was recorded, so I'm going to share it, and if it's okay with everybody, I may even share it on our national board group for world language teachers, so that other students, other teachers who are doing this can benefit. So it's been a pleasure, Chio. As always, thank you so much for helping. Just
thank you for
collaborating with me on
thank you for your leadership and for the initiation of supporting this. I'm glad I'm here to support you and support everyone. And I always feel like this is not enough. I want to do more. I want to help you more. So please reach out if there is anything else we can do to support you through this journey.
Yes, absolutely. All right. I hope everyone has a great afternoon. I am going to leave because my husband is going to leave me if I'm not ready in a couple minutes. All right. Bye.
Bye. Have a nice weekend, everyone.